Once again, taking a live look over the White House as we get to the latest here on your top headlines. The U.S. Department of Education handing off some of its biggest grant programs to other federal agencies as the Trump administration pushes forward with a plan to shut down the department. President Trump called for its elimination with an executive action in March, and now 6 new agreements signed by the Education Department will effectively move billions of dollars in grant programs to other agencies. Most notable is one that will put the Department of Labor over some of the largest federal funding streams for K-12 schools, including money for schools that serve low-income communities. Opponents urging against the entire plan, arguing that it could disrupt programs that support some of the nation's most vulnerable student populations. Right now, I do want to pop this up on your screen. This is actually a remark from the Secretary for Education. This is Linda McMahon. She appeared on Fox and said, "My top priority is to fulfill the president's mission to return education to the states. Our partnerships mark a major step toward restoring local control and delivering better outcomes for our students." I do want to bring in Jeanne Allen, the founder and CEO of the Center for Education Reform and co-founder of the Yass Prize. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and helping to break down what the situation is at this point.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning. Well, can you start by explaining where we stand right now and what the latest information is as President Trump does work to dismantle the Department of Education?
Sure. So this is the next step in a long line of efforts the department's making to break up programs in the department. What we have to know is that the department is authorized by Congress. Any major restructuring, shutting down requires an act of Congress. That's a tough sell. So in the meantime, to fulfill the president's agenda, Linda McMahon and her team are making agreements with other agencies, as you said, to take on these programs. So what does this mean? It means that while the oversight for those programs will go to different agencies, labor for post-secondary and elementary, state has international, interior gets Indian education, and so forth. HHS gets some child-related and medical-related programs. The actual responsibility and money for driving those changes happens at the states. In other words, it doesn't actually just transfer bureaucracy. It reduces the amount of people messing around and imploding programs that are actually meant for kids.
Is there any historical precedent, anything of that nature, when you look a little bit closer about the dismantlement of the Education Department as a whole?
Well, not really. The department was created in 1980. It was a promise from then President Jimmy Carter in his election. They basically assembled programs that were at HHS at the time, which was also not called that. So we do have some level of understanding of what happens when things shift. It does not mean, though, as the critics are suggesting, that there will be less oversight in terms of how children are treated. It doesn't mean that students will get less money. In fact, we argue that they'll actually get more because there's so many resources that are peeled off at every single layer, Josh, from the federal to the state to the local level. And so if states are smart, and we're cautioning also the department, they have to provide guidance, right? The Department of Labor, whoever's in charge, has to help states, communities, and local educators understand what their responsibilities are and how they can actually ensure that the money reaches kids. They have more freedom, more flexibility to do it, more options. Now they have to seize the moment.
As we continue to follow all of this, do we have an idea of both the short-term and long-term impacts on, let's say, parents, students, and schools in general as, again, all of this takes shape?
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest. It is going to be a little messy. We have a education system across the country that is used to one way of doing things, very top-down, compliance-driven. Districts are required to report up. They often do things in response to what the feds and states say, not necessarily a response to parents. So while for leaders of school systems and schools, this may be a little messy, parents need to understand that this actually gives them more power than ever before. They should be going into their schools, into their communities, to their school board meetings and saying, okay, what can we do about this? Not just wait and have something happen to them. This follows a wave of parent engagement that started pre-COVID and followed and accelerated after that. More states than ever before offering options and freedom for parents, offering more flexibility for teachers. So what do we have to do? Make that really stick? You got to get the federal government out of the way of the rank and file.
As we kind of see, again, this process continue to play out, what would be maybe some of the indicators that this is succeeding or failing? What do people need to be watching for as the weeks, months, and potentially years here do progress?
Sure. I think one of the most important that may take a little time, but you'll start seeing it in the next 12 to 18 months, is you will see better achievement results on state assessments, maybe eventually on that nation's report card that always shows us a gloomy picture of, fewer than 30% of our kids proficient in math, reading, and just about everything else. So outcomes is one. Two is high satisfaction. Look, we have teachers, the districts and systems are imploding. Teachers leaving and going to start throwing micro schools. They're going to do online learning. They're tired of being in a system that's not responsive. I think you could see more people wanting to go into the profession, more teachers wanting to lead their own schools, and more parents engaged in the process. And those are the three most important things we can expect. We want, bottom line is this is about outcomes. The Department of Labor taking over elementary and secondary education, post-secondary. Sounds a little strange to people. The argument is if the Labor Department is right now administering millions of workforce programs tied directly with the workforce, why wouldn't they also be looking at how education actually evolves into and tracks into those kinds of outcomes as well? And so there's a lot that still remains to be seen. It's a very entrepreneurial approach. Not everybody is happy. But at the end of the day, don't forget what's happening with kids locally and parent engagement through choice and opportunity and innovation is the most important thing we can do for our kids. And most of the time, the federal bureaucracy stands in the way.
All right. Jeanne Allen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. A complicated subject and a lot to it, so we definitely appreciate it. Anything else you want to add? Anything we missed here before I let you go?
Well, just that people need to get informed, and we're doing a lot of guidance, a lot of groups. Our website is edreform.com. You'll be able to find things there to help you navigate. But look, ask questions, get informed. If you read one side, read the other side. At the end of the day, we need to make sure everyone's engaged. If there are mistakes being made, let's let people know we're in charge. It's an important opportunity, and it's an important controversy to debate.
All right. Jeanne, thank you so much for being here with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks.